productivity and drives up voluntary turnover. One poll found that nearly 50% of the respondents reported having changed jobs to escape the stress. As we will see in Chapter 2, on the toll of unhealthy workplace practices, the costs to just the U.S. healthcare system approach $200 billion a year, and may be more. Unfortunately, the problems from what IESE Business School professor Nuria Chinchilla once aptly called social pollution seem to be getting worse, not better. Possibly the saddest part of the tale, even as organizations of all kinds regularly permit, if not encourage, management practices that literally sicken and kill their employees, these same employers also suffer because toxic management practices and unhealthy workplaces do not improve organizational profitability or performance. On the contrary, unhealthy workplaces diminish employee engagement, increase turnover, and reduce job performance, even as they drive up health insurance and healthcare costs. All too many workplaces have management practices that serve neither the interests of employees nor their employers, truly a lose-lose situation. People's needless harm and suffering occur even as companies tout their environmental bona fides. Ironically, companies have developed elaborate measures to track their progress on environmental sustainability, with little thought given to the company's effects on human sustainability. Although environmental sustainability obviously is essential, so is human sustainability, creating workplaces where people can thrive and experience physical and mental health, where they can work for years without facing burnout or illness from management practices in the workplace. We should care about people, not just endangered species or photogenic polar bears, as we think about the impact of corporate activity on our environments. And as companies obsess over their carbon footprint, they would do well to consider their effects, their footprints, on the human beings, a carbon-based life form, who work for them. As we will see in the pages that follow, if anything is going to change with respect to workplace well-being and employee physical and mental health, some or a combination of the following things will need to occur. First, current and prospective employees must understand what constitutes health risks in their work environments, and that includes the psychosocial risks that are today more omnipresent and dangerous than the risks of physical injury. Armed with that information, people must then begin to select and deselect their employers at least partly based on stress-related dimensions of work that profoundly influence their physical and mental health. Second, employers will need to understand and measure what their toxic management practices are costing them, both in direct medical costs and more indirectly in lost productivity and increased turnover. That understanding and quantification of the costs of toxic work environments seems like a necessary first step toward change. Third, governments at all levels will need to first acknowledge and measure, and then do something about the externalities created as employers offload people who were physically and psychologically damaged at work onto various parts of the public health and welfare system. The public costs of privately created workplace stress and unhealthy workplaces have already prompted policy attention and action in the United Kingdom and in many Scandinavian countries, in part because with government-funded health care, it is in the economic interests of public agencies to reduce unnecessary healthcare costs, including preventable costs from workplace stress. And fourth, societies will need social movements, or maybe several social movements, that make human sustainability and people's work environments as important as environmental sustainability and the physical environment have become. Decades ago, companies regularly dumped pollutants into the air, water, and ground. Then, people decided that preserving the physical environment and having businesses pay for the external harm they were causing were worthy social goals. Because of the environmental movement, publicity, and political pressure, governments all over the world passed laws and nations developed norms that curtailed many actions that polluted the physical environment. In a similar fashion, societies would benefit from movements that resolutely take the importance and sanctity of human life and people's physical and psychological well-being more seriously, not just at life's very, very beginning or at its very, very end, but throughout people's lives, including their lives at work. Another inconvenient truth. Several distinct but interrelated events caused me to delve into the topic of work organizations and their effects on human health.